Hey guys, I want to thank you all that watch me on a regular basis and contribute with your comments and your emails. Because yesterday I had an awesome call from my parish priest. He said our RCIA director friend told him he converted to Catholicism after watching our channel, Blue Collar Catholic. And I told my father, I said, man, I feel like crying. Maybe we can get them both on this channel for an interview, because the RCIA director has a powerful story. He was a Grammy-nominated Latin singer, very popular, had everything that most people want, and he walked away at the height of it to have something that many of us take for granted, a relationship with Jesus, to be part of his church, the Holy Catholic Church, and he's serving God in the church now. So that's a powerful story. And then his friend would love to hear his testimony, how he converted. And I say, we did it because, you know, I don't come to you with fancy words. I just preach Christ crucified. And a lot of times we get comments, and, I try and engage. And sometimes I don't have the time. Sometimes I don't have the answer. But you guys always come to the defense of the gospel and the Holy Catholic Church, sometimes with better answers than I have. So this is our channel. And when I started it, I didn't want to be like, I came out of Protestantism. I didn't want it to be about me. I didn't want to be like Kenneth Copeland Ministries, Benny Hinn's ministry. I noticed all those guys, their name was always up front. I said, I don't even want people to know my name. And in fact, it was funny. My second live interview was with Tim Gordon. And like at one point in the interview, he went to refer to me. He's like, I don't even know your name. What's your name? And I said, Rob. And I think he misheard me, if I recall. And he called me Bob the rest of the interview. And then right after that, I got a call from someone from Church Militant, really sweet woman. And she said, hey, we seen your interview with Tim. Want to know if you wanted to talk to Michael Vore. So he came on. We were talking about the election, because he's real knowledgeable about politics. And then I got a call. Hey, he wants to post that interview on Church Militant. We noticed you never use your name. Is it okay we use your name? And I wanted to say no, but then I was like, man, that's going to sound weird. Like, what am I, in the witness protection program or something? So that was the first time my name got out there. Because there's an army of us, you and me, of just ordinary Catholics. We don't have fancy degrees. We don't have big platforms. We're just ordinary Catholics that love the Lord and love the church he created. And we just want to defend our faith the best we know how. And so I'm very grateful to you guys. And so this gets me to the point of the Pope's letter I wrote yesterday. I noticed when I made a couple bloopers. One I called Pope Leo XIV, Pope Saint Leo XIV, because I was thinking about Pope Saint Pius X, and I was also thinking about Pope Saint John Paul II. And so if you caught that, that's how that happened. But then I actually lost my train of thought in one part of it. And I asked you guys to pray for me, because when I was a teenager, I had a lot of concussions. And I read, like, when you're in your 50s, if you had concussions when you were a kid, you'll start losing your memory. So hopefully that's not what's going on. Also did a lot of drugs as a teenager, so that could be part of it too. But I have a friend who's got literally a PhD in biochemistry, and he specializes in nutritional science. Like, there's so many huge breakthroughs if you know how to read the data, because it's all scientific terms, and he's an expert at that. And he shows me the data. I mean, most medical doctors don't have the time, or it's not really that profitable. So, they just deal with the pharmaceutical reps that come in, the pharmaceutical salesmen, and sell their drugs. But this guy has really shown me a lot of stuff in the nutritional sciences. And so anyway, he recommended a few brain stimulants. So I haven't tried them yet, but hopefully that'll work if that's a problem. But it may just be me, because I've always been like that. If I'm talking to you in person, you know, people have said to me, you know, I ask you the time and you build me a clock. I'm going to give you every detail, and I'm going to get so far off giving you details, sometimes I can't rein it back in. Like Trump calls it the weave. Sometimes I'm able to do the Trump weave, but sometimes I lose it and I forget what I'm talking about. So at one point I said, a lot of these legalistic Catholics on YouTube are like so beaten down and heavy burden. And they thought, you know, we were in the worst crisis of the church because Pope Francis had restricted or limited the Latin Mass. And I said, the devil is so diabolical. He had them focused on that, and they missed the most awesome thing in the world, that the true crisis, the worst crisis that ever happened in the Catholic Church, the child sex abuse crisis. And if you don't think that's the worst crisis, then you're part of the problem. But that was the worst crisis the church ever seen. Pope Francis ended that. According to Jason Burry, the investigative journalist that broke the story and wrote the book Spotlight, they made the movie Spotlight that actually put a spotlight on it. He's investigated the Catholic Church more than anyone. He said Pope Francis ended this problem by his initiatives. And I did many videos. Pope Francis did a lot of things to end it. And the facts are the facts. The facts are the facts. In 2023, the last year, the FBI statistics that I can find, there was only 3 serious allegations of Catholic priests' sexual abuse. Now that's 3 too many, but compare that with the world. The Chicago public school system, one city, one school district in America, that same year had over 3,100 serious allegations. And during Pope Francis's pontificate over 12 years, I have a book by Bill Donahue, and I'm not gonna bring it out because I've done many videos on this, and I gave every year, but the average was 5. Now, pre-Vatican II, there were thousands every year. So that, I was saying, the devil had them so burdened looking at things so skewed. They were thinking, this is the worst crisis. You know, it was like, we just need to resist and fight because our Father is being so mean to us. And so I just wanted to, if you caught that, because I was talking about the worst crisis and then I went off topic. But I think with these legalists, and I explained what legalism was in a prior video to that, legalism instead of a cantus, they're so hyper-focused on things the church doesn't condemn that they condemn the things that the church, the good things that the church is doing. And I think, just like with every schismatic, starting from Martin Luther, they have a very unhealthy understanding of God the Father. Because Martin Luther's father was so mean, he thought God was always angry at him. He was always trying to get God to accept him. And his confessor knew that, and he said, Martin, read Romans. You see, you know, it's not what you do. And this is where he came up with faith alone. He actually rediscovered a Catholic doctrine. He just kind of twisted it up a little bit. But the Catholic Church has always taught us by the grace of God that we can be reconciled by God. But I see that with a lot of Christians, a lot of Catholic Christians, Protestant Christians, where they had a mean father, and a lot of these guys on YouTube will admit it. They won't say anything disrespectful about their father because they know honor your father and your mother, but they had mean fathers, and they think God is always angry, so they're always trying in their own strength. You know, I heard a preacher years ago saying, you know, giving this funny analogy, this guy hated peanut butter, but he was told by someone that God loves peanut butter, so every day he would eat a jar of peanut butter, and he couldn't stand it, and when he stood before God at the end of time, and he said, God, you know, I was a good Christian. I ate peanut butter every day. And God's like, I don't like peanut butter. So anyway, so these people, these people that have this understanding that God is angry if the Pope, who's the vicar of Christ, he's the representative of God on earth for us Catholics, they kind of look at him suspicious, like he's angry with them and he's disciplining them. And when he would discipline, they would see it as punishment, and they didn't understand. And I'm just going to give you a few quick analogies, and I'm going to give you a few Bible verses to prove what I'm saying. So, my father and my grandfather were like two of the toughest guys. I mean, my friends, they had high respect of my father and my grandfather, very tough guys. My father was a welder, my grandfather was a painter. But they were very tough. And in fact, my mother said she married my father because he was the only guy that wasn't afraid of her father, my grandfather. And my grandfather spoke broken English. He was Italian, but he spoke it pretty good, but with a heavy Italian accent, like I break your face, kind of Italian. And my father was born in Newark, so he was all American. And she said the first time that he met, my father met my grandfather, my grandfather answered the door, and she heard them arguing. And she's like, why are they arguing? So apparently on the way, my father was on the way to pick up my mother and meet my grandfather. And I guess he had to stop for gas or something. And my grandfather thought he cut him off. And they just got out of the car and started yelling at each other. And, in Newark, we had beat cops, to walk the beat. They had to separate them. So that's how they met. But, I mean, these were tough guys. But every time I greeted my father was always, and my grandfather was always with a hug and a kiss on the cheek. And whenever I said goodbye to him, it was always with a hug and a kiss on the cheek. And I love you too. They were tough guys, but I knew they loved me, and and they were affectionate, And I think when they disciplined me, I knew they didn't discipline me because they hated me. I knew they disciplined me because they loved me. The Bible tells us right here about God. So if you have that healthy understanding of your father, you can have a healthy understanding of God. But if you have an abusive father, you think every time God disciplines you, it's out of anger and he's mean. Hebrews 12:6 says, for the Lord disciplines him who he loves and chastises every son he receives. This is why when I went to boot camp, and I always say these YouTubers need to go to boot camp that were criticizing the Pope because of their disrespect, but they also need to go to boot camp to understand this principle. Before I went to Navy boot camp, I had an older cousin that went through Marine Corps boot camp, and he told me, he said, just Rob, it's a head game. They're going to try and push all your buttons. Just try and not be noticed. Guess who was noticed, but that's another story. He said, man, I thought my drill instructors hated me. But at the end, when we graduated, they gave us a hug. They cried. They gave a speech how they felt like we were their children. If we ever needed anything, it was a bond made, iron sharpens iron and men sharpen men, and I had that same experience in boot camp. They dogged me. I thought they hated my guts, but, I had it in the back of my head what my cousin said. So I pushed through, and, I knew my father disciplined me because he loved me, and they wanted me to be the best I can be. So there was discipline involved. And at the end, again, we call them company commanders in Navy boot camp, they got emotional, and you could tell like we had a special bond. So I think a lot of these people have an unhealthy image of God. So when Pope Francis would discipline them, they seen it as anger and hate. And I seen some of these guys saying, Pope Francis hated us. He was so mean. He said the meanest things. And Pope Francis was a tough blue collar guy too. Before he became Pope, he was a bouncer. So he would come across a little rough sometimes. Even though he grew up in Argentina, he's got that Italian blood. He's an Italian. So I see him like my Italian grandfather. And this is why you've seen so many Catholics thought he was such a loving, the most loving Christ-like father ever in the church. He had some thought he was the worst father and the meanest. I mean, some of these guys said he was so mean. I heard one guy on YouTube call him a meanie. He was a meanie. He hated us because they had this skewed look on fathers. They didn't know that a good father disciplines his child. There's another part in the Bible says, if you don't discipline your children, you hate them. So, they have an unhealthy view of discipline. So I just want them to know that God is not angry with you. In fact, Psalm 17:8, King David refers to us as the apple of God's eye. Get that through your brain. You're the apple of God's eye. And this is what Jesus wants to say to you today. Matthew 11:28-30. Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. And I see these legalists on YouTube that hated Pope Francis, and they're carrying a heavy burden that other people, Jesus, just like the Pharisees put a heavy burden on the Jews, a lot of these YouTubers that I think know better, but there's a lot of money involved in what they're doing, and they're putting a heavy burden. They're gaslighting. The whole 12 years of Pope Francis, they were gaslighting people. People were always upset. Oh, he's going to ordain women. Oh, he's going to allow homosexual marriage. Oh, this, oh, that. And nothing ever came true. It's like the sign in the bar, free beer tomorrow. Every day they're telling you tomorrow, the sky is falling. And these people missed 12 years of life. 12 years where they could be going evangelizing, loving God, learning from a holy pope. Instead, they were resisting. And many of them fell away, and had many write to me, and some were sad they left the church altogether. Some left and became Eastern Orthodox. But a lot of them came back. A lot of them came back because of you guys, because of this channel, Blue Collar Catholic. Just ordinary guys and girls that go to the ordinary mass. We're just ordinary people that know God, and we know that he can do extraordinary things to us. The new evangelization is happening. And again, so many people missed it because they misunderstood God's love for them and the Pope's love for his children. And they thought they were being mistreated. And they missed this new evangelization. The church exploded over the past 10 years. We had record growth. And they missed it. They missed it because they were focused on themselves, the way they wanted things. When a father disciplines us, discipline is never pleasant, the Bible says, but in the end, it brings about fruit, So when you're disciplined, it's usually taking away something that you like, that's what it usually is. And if you focus on yourself instead of why is God disciplining me? You have a totally different perspective. But God's burden is light. He wants to give you peace, joy, love, And right now, they actually admitted, all these YouTubers admitted their strategy. They're going to be nice and talk nice and respectful about Pope Leo, try and get him to give him their 1962 missal back in full. But the minute he disciplines them, you're going to hear the same gaslighting from the same people that make money off of gaslighting. And then true devout men and women that want to serve God, that don't understand discipline, they don't understand the proper way to look at God the Father or our Holy Father, they're going to be right back in and waste another decade or two, depending on how long Pope Leo is there. They're just feeling beaten down. So being Catholic means we recognize the Pope as the vicar of Christ, Christ's representative. So receive the love of Christ from the Holy Father, just like us married guys. We're commanded to love our wives like Christ loved the church. And our wives are to see Christ in us and submit to us like they would to God. You see, so it's very, I guess the word would be incarnational, it's real. God uses real people. That's why he wants you to go to confession and hear a real representative of him say you are forgiven. This is real. And if you just believe the lies of the devil, that the Pope hates his children, that he's not even the Pope, or he's a bad Pope. And God is angry with you, or God's angry with the church. There's only a remnant of us, like the Mormons and the Jehovah's Witnesses say, we're a remnant. There's only a few Catholics. We're a remnant of Catholics that are holding the true faith. Martin Luther, and I even have classic Protestants that comment on my channel. They believe they're the true Catholics. They didn't make a new religion in their view. They brought Catholicism back to where it was. They reformed it. They didn't create something new. The old Catholics that reject Vatican I, they think they're, for over 100 years, they've been the remnant holding on to the true faith, because Vatican I went and made the church leave. And you got those guys that reject Vatican II, and they think they're holding the true faith. Then you have guys that don't reject either, but they think somehow the Pope is teaching heresy. Jesus promised us the gates of Hades will not prevail against the church. So just rest in Jesus' words that Satan is not going to prevail and his burden is light. If you feel a heavy burden, it's not from God. You allowed other men to place that burden. Ask God to take it from you, because he who the Son sets free is free indeed. God bless and stay Catholic.